And we are live.
And we are live. Yes, sir.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for powering through these technical difficulties with us, but we are live and we're ready to get started. My name is Christina. I work for Microsoft, and I just want to do a quick overview of a Teams live event. That is what you were looking at right now. It is a little bit different from a Teams meeting if you are familiar with Teams, but there is a Q&A option for you. So we do encourage you to submit any questions you might have throughout this event. As Josh, our moderator, is going through different questions, and as our guest speakers are speaking, please submit any questions with the Q&A feature, which you can find. If you mouse over your screen, you should see an icon that looks like two little speech bubbles with a question mark in it. You just click on that icon, and it will open up the Q&A panel for you to submit your questions. So, without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Josh to kick us off.
Sweet. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Welcome, everyone, to Cultural Entrepreneurship Presents the Future of Tech Part 2. Thank you, guys, for joining from all over. I want to give a shout out to Venture X. This is where I'm recording right now. Sync Lab Media. Shout out to Microsoft. We have two great people on Microsoft right now helping us out. Toby and Christina, thank you guys for troubleshooting and helping out with some of the problems that we've had. But yeah, let me go ahead and jump right in. We're going to get the panelists introduced to you guys. We have another great panel. First, we have Ben, and I'm going to let him introduce yourself.
Everyone, my name is Ben Smithy. I'm based out of Manhattan here in New York City. I'm the CEO of the Smithy Group, TSG, and we are a digital growth agency focusing on small and medium-sized businesses, everything from content creation to paid media and advertising, as well as we have a branch called TSG i3, which is our innovation and intelligence that we focus on enterprise consumer research.
Super cool. Sweet. Next up, we have David Chen, and I'm going to allow him to introduce himself.
David, you are on mute.
Oh, David, you might be on mute.
The first part of Future Tech is unmute yourself. That's
Exactly. That's the first part of Future Tech.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Next up, we have Elizabeth. You want to give a short introduction?
Hey guys, my name is Elizabeth Riza, and I am based out of Dallas, Texas. Our company is Birdie. We are an on-location beauty services app, and we're currently in Texas as well as South Carolina and kind of expanding throughout the country.
Sweet. And last but not least, we have Gabe.
Hey guys, thank you for having me so much. Gabe Castro, I'm based out of San Antonio, Texas. I'm here with the North American Collegiate League, an esports league, nonprofit league, and I currently serve as a creative director for the league, but also have over 15 years of IT professional experience before joining this venture too. So thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Sweet. Man, well, I appreciate you guys for joining. We are in for a treat. Let's go ahead and jump right in because we've already took up 15 minutes. I'm gonna jump right into the questions and I'll give my, brief introduction at the end, or brief conclusion, if you will. So, the way that we normally do this, obviously you guys, Christina said, if you have any questions, submit those to the right. And what we'll be doing with that, with those questions is we'll hold those towards the end, the last 15 minutes, and we'll ask some of those questions that you guys have. But for me now, I'm gonna ask the questions. And we're starting off with this one. The first question is, do you think emerging technologies will empower individuals or make them more vulnerable? And this is for anyone on the panel. So if you have, just be like, hey, I can answer that, and we'll know where to cue the camera. So the question again is, do you think emerging technologies will empower individuals or make them more vulnerable?
Yeah, I can kick us off. So I think it's an interesting question because that I think empowered individuals tend to be more vulnerable in other aspects, right? So the things that empower us are also our biggest opportunities for weakness, or the biggest opportunities for vulnerability, right? So and causes blind spots. I think that as we're enabled with tech, I think the first things that come to mind are like security, privacy, things of that nature. But I think overall, what we're going to start seeing in the sort of the adoption cycle and innovation cycle is people empowered to utilize tech without the friction of like user interfaces, and without the friction of like even hardware restrictions that we see now. And so I think when you start seeing like vulnerable communities when it comes to lack of education around tech, where it's like older populations or like underserved populations, things of that nature, I think you're going to start to see them empowered with the ability to use tech, the ability to integrate with technology, small businesses having more access to things that were only available to corporations and enterprises. So overall, I'd say it's a net positive.
Oh, yeah. Sweet. Does anyone else want to weigh in on that? That was a really great answer.
Off of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to agree. I definitely think that the emerging technologies is hugely empowering to individuals, especially the customer. I think it's a disruption for businesses that are you come to me centric, and that technology is allowing for this asynchronous environment. So you can order something off the internet and it's at your home the next day. And so I do believe that we're seeing retail and companies like that are being disrupted, where we at one time had those customers coming to us, but now I think technology is providing the opportunity for businesses to pivot so that we're now going to the customers. So I think it's definitely providing a lot of opportunity, and it's hugely empowering to those customers, because now we suddenly have so many choices and so many opportunities to get what we want in a relatively fast manner.
Yes, I agree. Gabe, you want to go ahead and weigh in?
Yeah, just quick piggyback off top of that. That's kind of what I was going to say. It's kind of, we're in a time right now where there's so many interconnected, devices all over the globe, and people are connected in all kinds of ways like never before, and I think that's only going to go forward. So it's a little bit of both. I think it's empowering both, but it's definitely revolutionizing or changing the way that not only we live, work, shop, play, relax, everything. So I definitely think it's definitely empowering. But I think it's both. But I think there's more of an adjustment for the small business, as maybe was indicated there, than it is for the individual. The individual, we seem to kind of be right on the cutting edge of what's the next tech, what's next, where do we go from here?
Right.
What can we do now? And where, like you said, some of the brick and mortar type businesses are trying to catch up, and if you look at the times we're in right now, just in regards to the global pandemic, a lot of people have had to make some changes, and will have to make changes, because obviously, going forward, we'll be living a different lifestyle. So, but
yeah, those are all excellent answers. Like, I mean, I totally agree. And this leads me to my next question. You guys were talking about a lot of things being disrupted, industries, having to pivot and adjust. Which industries do you think will be affected most with tech change? With everything that's going on and the things that that are currently going on, and how tech is advancing so fast right now, which industries do you think would be affected the most?
I think retail's a clear answer, right?
Yeah, retail. Yeah,
I think retail's a clear answer, and I think healthcare is another one. Not just because of like COVID-related pandemic type things, but just through sort of virtual, and as Elizabeth was talking about earlier, the sort of like on-site service type things, virtual services. I think healthcare is the next thing to get revolutionized in terms of even in the healthcare systems, in terms of automations and things of that nature. It's going to be a lot more simple for people in a self-serve type of platform in the future.
Yeah, just I'm glad you said healthcare. Just in my experience, with working with information systems, actually was working for a firm for the last few years, and that's what we did was actually, build and maintain hospital information systems, and everything has pivoted in the last, I would say 5 to 8, maybe 5 to 10 years, and now even more so to a virtual environment, not only for all because you're talking about data, and data in healthcare is huge, all the information in regards to each individual patient and all the information in regards to their testing and the results and all of that stuff is stored and has to be backed up and made sure that it's disaster protected. So that's just one aspect and one kind of offshoot of if we're just talking about healthcare, not even to mention what he was just saying, but absolutely, that's definitely one of them.
Love that. So you were speaking of healthcare. I'm skipping over it now because that made me think about which industry would be impacted the most with blockchain. So I want to ask a question, and just kind of for the viewers who don't know, blockchain enables participants in a network to trace assets back to their origin, not only benefits traditional assets, but paves the way for uses such as tracing foodborne illness back to the original supplier. Blockchains allows multiple partners who don't know each other to safely interact in a digital environment and exchange value without the need of centralized authority. So, and it says by 2023, blockchain will be a scalable technology and it will be supported and trusted. What are you guys' thought on blockchain, and then what industry do you think that blockchain will impact the most? I'm just going to say, mine's off the top. I think it would impact healthcare the most with like smart documents and things like that. But what are you guys' thought on blockchain and the advancement of that technology?
I mean,
I can't wait for it personally, but go ahead.
Okay. I'd probably tell you that, being in the blockchain world and dealing with that type of programming, I can say that it's really going to come down to the acceptance of actual blockchain and the understanding it between programmers and the guys who are actually behind the scenes and the supply chain side of it and putting it together. I think that's really, really big deal. Implementation is a big part of it. So it can be part of any industry. You're right about the medical field, time stamping, the ability to understand and to cross-share different clients, patients all at the same time. The issue is the medical community willing to share each other's documents during that time in order for blockchain to actually have access to it or prevent any security issues that come from there. I know for, currently as far as the collegiate league that Gabe is talking about, we implemented blockchain with Ethereum and did custom payout structures with payouts in esports. So people can actually pay and receive finances all around the world through crypto. So the implementation certainly can exist. It depends on the leadership and the understanding. But I think more importantly, it's the ability to have guys that from a technical side and the business side, the ability for them to actually work together and actually make it come alive. That's going to be the big difference. But I think every industry eventually will be affected by blockchain.
Yeah, we operate a lot in the luxury goods industry, right? So let's take diamonds, for example. I mean, blockchain is a symbolic sort of technologically what it can represent in a value proposition is trust, right?
Right.
Trust and provenance. And so if we can look at the provenance of a diamond from mine to market, there's technologies where we see rough diamond coming out of the ground that can be essentially like mapped to where we know where that rough and what it yields into then cut and polished diamonds, and then through manufacturing and laser etching and to the customer. It symbols an amount of trust and value proposition there and transparency in the whole chain of command in the trade of command in that system. The same thing goes to validation if you look at like fine wine, if you look at antique or art. There's all of these other things that can be anything that has provenance, or anything that provenance is the key to value proposition or worth. We're seeing it going to really be a major player in all of these things. And what's interesting is I think that to David's point, it's sort of this innovation adoption curve, right? That right now it's sort of disruptive, but what it will be in the future is just like par for the course. Like it's just an underlying basis of everything that'll be accepted in terms of, right? People see it as the hot button when it comes to cryptocurrencies and things like that, but it's way bigger than that, actually.
Right. I agree. So next question is, how do you guys think technological change could solve key global problems? So, we just with blockchain, everything that encompasses is trust. What other technological changes could solve key problems? Security is one that came to mind. If someone wants to touch on that, because that's something. And Gabe, if you wanted to weigh in on blockchain too, you can definitely do that.
Oh,
as well.
no. These guys, they summed it up perfectly. I
Okay,
agree with both sentiments with David in it. So, absolutely. As far as security, you're talking cybersecurity is a word that gets thrown around a lot. Everyone, that's the buzzword. But what does that actually mean? Basically what you're talking about is the security of data. As I alluded to before, and data across any industry is absolutely the gold or what we're trying to protect. Because you're talking about inside industry information for your company. You're talking about healthcare information, individuals having their health information out there, or then you're talking about credit, you're talking about financial information, all kinds of data that obviously needs to be protected. So it's like, how do you do it? And there's so many ways, obviously, to do that. It's infinite, but I think that is a main focus when you talk about cybersecurity. You're really coming down to talking about data. How do you protect the data? How do you store it? How do you back it up? How do you make sure that you have disaster recovery plans in place in case that data goes down? Now we've moved from a physical world into a virtual world, and even that virtual world needs to be backed up. So it's just like an endless cycle of backup upon backup, and then how long do you hold that backup information? So that's a pretty intense question, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead and jump in.
I'll speak to that a little bit. I think that it's interesting because I think one of the mega trends that we're seeing and that we started seeing a long time ago is this whole concept of mass customization. It used to be a one size fits all model, and now everything is moving towards this customization model. And I think that we see that in blockchain, we see that in AI and how we're advertising to customers today. We want to customize our ads according to what it is that they're interested in. And as a result, customers have to give up a little bit of privacy in order for companies to access that data. And so it's a little bit of a balance between with the business wanting to ensure that they're protecting information, bank account information, all of the things, but also gain enough access to personal information in order to customize an experience for that customer. So I feel like you have to, I feel like it's just an interesting balance between that privacy and securing that experience, but also giving people what they want and providing a more customized approach.
I love that.
Yeah,
absolutely. With that comes a whole section of managing tools and rules and everything that you have to put in. But that's a really good point as far as the customization. I like that.
Yeah, and if you look at it, I think from a key global problem, the number one value is access to information, right? When you look at developing nations and access to information, and us to access information that they have, right? Just because you don't have access to the technology doesn't mean that you don't have a solution in your mind that can solve a global problem, right? So giving people in developing nations access to greater speeds, greater bandwidth, greater technology access, knowledge access is going to be a huge win. And it's sort of like as the tide rises, so do all the boats, right? On the flip side of that, maybe to the customization piece, I think it goes to a marketing. I think when you look at it, if I look at it from a media and a marketing and paid media spend, technological changes are going to change the game of marketing and advertising completely when it comes to things that are advancing in dynamic content optimization, when it comes to audience management, data management platforms, programmatic, the ability to use AI and behavioral based, cookie based, first party cookie based type of information to then serve up dynamic content to people in a way that makes them consume more the affinity to consume a product or service at a higher level, I think that's going to be a huge breakthrough. And we're already seeing a lot in the space when it comes to, digital OTT, when it comes to programmatic advertising, just the dynamic content optimization and serving you a piece of content that's actually relevant to you. It doesn't feel like advertising and marketing as much as it feels like problem solving. And I think that's a huge opportunity for businesses, especially in the agency space.
Sweet. Well, I got a question. I thought about this whenever you were speaking, Elizabeth, and I wanted to actually ask this question specifically to you. Like, and you're in the space of making people feel good, obviously. Does technological progress make people feel happier? What are your thoughts on that?
I definitely think it does. I mean, I think it's probably subtle, but I think, technological progress is hugely beneficial because it used to, and I think I kind of alluded to this at the beginning, it used to be this environment where people would have to come to businesses to feel good. People would have to go to businesses to get what they want. Now we're flipping the script where we're having businesses go to people, and we can only do that because of the advances that we've had in technology. And I think that it's providing a lot of opportunity in addition to just making people feel good. It's giving them access to more opportunities than they would have otherwise. So yeah, the long and the short of it is yes, I do think so.
So does anyone else want to weigh in on that?
I mean, I think technology obviously is pivotal. I mean, there's an instantaneous access and instantaneous understanding. And for companies, they can zero in on a demographic that they want to target specifically to push their brands and incentives. And the data that comes from there, they can then use it to understand the future of growth and perspective, right? Data is real numbers, and those numbers will help you as a leader figure out what you have to do. But the beautiful part about all this is it's globalization in the most massive form. You can catch up with people from all around you haven't seen in 20, 30, 40 years and see what they're doing and actually know what's going on in their lives, without actually having to physically be there. And of course, there is not that human interaction, but given the time that we're in and the circumstances that we're at least we're lucky enough to have things like technology where we can be on this amazing panel and these discussions and still keep in touch with our friends and family. So it's definitely something that can bring happiness and joy if utilized right.
Yeah, I think there's another myth that people often underestimate is like AR, VR, and more importantly, like mixed reality type things. I think because it's had a couple misses and a couple false starts, people underestimate what that is really going to happen. Like the people don't believe you that there will be a time when people get plugged in for hours upon hours at a time into virtual reality or mixed reality to where they're walking around their home in a VR, but also in mixed reality because it's actually like the goggles or whatever interface is actually interpreting real world at the same time. Like that will happen. I think people think that it's still this pipe dream because it's had a couple false starts with with Google Glass or the early versions of things. But even if you haven't checked out the latest version of Oculus and some of these things, what they're capable of is absolutely phenomenal. I'd encourage you, for those of you that are in the audience, to check out the latest VR technology if you haven't. But I think that the conversion of that in sort of mixed reality, people underestimate how much that will take on eventually.
Totally agree. So speaking of, things changing as far as technology to human capacity, what is the significance of human capital changing? What is the significance of human capital changing due to the ongoing fourth technological revolution? So just like how, I guess what the question is for the audience who may not understand, what is the significance of human capital during these technological changes?
Yeah, so I can throw something out there, and if everyone doesn't want to jump in first.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of, so I'm from a research background, right? From marketing research, insights, and intelligence analytics. And there used to be this notion, and there's still this sort of underlying notion of technology, automation, big data, changing and eliminating the need for human capital and human influence and like human resources, things of that nature. Not human resources is in HR, human resources as in like humans doing work, or quantitative data displacing qualitative insights. And it's just not the case. We've seen it time and time again that even in the sort of like the, you know, whether it's fourth technology, fourth industrial, third industrial revolution, like all of these different paradigms, like humans still power these things. And if anything, human insight, human application is needed more than ever. Even as we've seen, like even let's just take COVID as a case study. What's the one thing that people desire more than anything is like human connectivity, human interaction, all of these things when we're a technology-based society. Then you're looking at, you know, 4 people on a panel that are heavily vested in the technological space, right? In virtual businesses. So, and we're still, I would venture, what's the one thing most all of us want to do is just hang out with our friends, like high five, give each other hugs, and sit in a room together and like shoot the crap with each other and BS, right? So as much as I say people are going to get plugged in, there's people also going to be like wanting to get grounded in reality as well.
And I agree with Benjamin 100%. I mean, I want to give you a high five for saying all that stuff. That's definitely true. You know, the reality is you know, there is an opportunity and the ability where you look at countries like a Taiwan that has manufactures 75% of the computers and laptops in the world, and they were able to do what they've done with GDP, or Japan because of technology. But the skilled labor and the human beings are so imperative. There's just the human touch. That's a human emotion. At the end of the day, nobody wants to feel like they're talking to a robot. Everyone wants to feel like they're talking to someone. When you call like a Wells Fargo, oh, let me just talk to my operator. Can I press 0? And they're smart enough to change it to number 9, right? The reality is that you really just want that interaction. So I don't think, you know, there'll be certain specialties that human beings and the things that we can do will continue to grow and develop. But at the same time, the ability to understand technology and to advance it and to learn it as a whole in a mass can only advance the human population, because that's the way times are, right? Times are trending, they are changing. We saw with the Industrial Revolution, we'll see it now with the things that are going on. And so it's imperative that we understand that, and more importantly, we still maintain that human interaction. High five back to the team.
I totally agree with you both, David and Benjamin. I will say I think that it's interesting because I think people get a little bit scared of technology if they don't understand it. They think it's, you know, it's going to replace them. And I actually do believe that eventually technology will be so far advanced that it's going to be able to do my job better than I can do it, and your job better than you can do it. And there will come a time, you know, at some point where AI will be so robust that it will happen. But I think that instead of us, you know, trying to put our hands up at this train that's coming, we just need to advance with that technology. So as technology is getting better, figure out a way to provide that human interaction, to provide that additional experience that only a human can do. I mean, right now there are AI like programs that can write, you know, way better emails, but there may be they miss that creative component still. So capitalize on those, on those things that that technology still has not caught up with that yet. So I think that as technology accelerates, it's just going to require us to level up and just to keep learning. And it's not a bad thing. We just have to make sure that we're, you know, keeping up with it.
Nice. All right. So look, here's a statement for the audience. Does anyone know what human augmentation is? If not, I'm going to read off what it means, and then I'm going to get you guys' thoughts on that. So human augmentation refers to the use of technology to enhance a person's cognitive and physical experience. Examples range from, you know, miners using wearables to improve worker safety to exploiting information and applications to enhance learning or new experiences. Physical augmentation will change the physical capability by implementing or hosting a technology within or on the body, while cognitive augmentation enhances the human ability to think and make better decisions. So what do you guys think of or thoughts on human augmentation?
Elon Musk is doing it, right?
Yeah, Elon Musk is doing it. He's doing a lot of things before everyone.
Yeah. You know, if for me personally, like if I'm not completely like I don't know doomsday about it. Do I think it's going to happen? 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I think it will happen in some way, shape, or form. I mean, we're already augmented when it comes to our smartphone. Like nobody carries around books. Nobody carries this is what we need. This is our knowledge. This is our brain, right?
Right.
When it comes to notes, numbers, anything like that, so we are augmented in ourselves already. Do I see a world where people will have like microchip implants and things like that? Yeah, if it helps them regulate their diabetes, if it helps them regulate glucose levels, if it helps them, like people do it when it comes to makers, right? We trust technology in those aspects. I think it's the value proposition, trust, and transparency.
So, that was perfect. Because that leads me to, does anyone else have anything on that? Because that I wanted to talk about transparency and traceability. What do you think about the transparency of security and what modern IT has created a trust crisis, and said Gardner. Consumers are now becoming more aware of their data is being collected and used. Artificial intelligence and machine learning to make anonymous decisions are increasingly used to make decisions in place of humans, which drives the need of ideas like explainable AI in governments. So essentially what that is saying is right now we don't have too much regulations in tech. Obviously our phones pick up everything that we're saying, and then they feed that data back to us, and that's why we're seeing ads that relate to us. So what do you guys think about just that transparency and traceability? And do you guys think that will change? Will that be like rectified? Is that something that will have some type of sensor on, or is that it's going to be open range?
I love this question, Josh. I always wondered how I'm on Facebook and I'm talking about weddings, and all of a sudden, poof, all the wedding things come up.
All
right?
the weddings, right?
Right. And it's like they hear me. They know.
They know exactly what you're thinking.
It's
and
crazy.
saying.
I think anything. If you look at the course of civilization to human beings, the reality is there's a certain point where we course correct when we know that it's too much or too little. You see it time and time again with governments and people like that. So the reality is, as it's advancing and it's changing, it's moving forward, the ability for us to regulate it as human beings, our wants, our needs, will be a point where enough is enough, and the people will probably move forward with the government, and then have an ability to say, this is all I want to share, and that's it, right? And that's why you see all these councils randomly on TV, talking to Facebook and everything else. I think that's going to be significant because it really is going to have imperative change. And the ironic thing is that was the whole purpose of blockchain, right? It was to implement to the masses, to actually confirm, audit that these things do exist and they do belong to the right people, so they can have that transparency. So you do see technology trying to merge and move from there, and you see the powers to be that can accept or not accept it. But at the end of the day, I sincerely believe that eventually there will be a limitation that we'll sit there and say that's enough, and that will be enough.
Regulations.
Yeah, Josh, I agree with David on that as far as the course correct. That's a really good, I like that statement, David. As AI becomes increasingly a part of everyday life for us as humans on this planet, our need to understand it, of course, grows by leaps and bounds. And so, where does it end? And when you talk about AI and its potential, it's potential to do a lot of good, but there's also potential for it to be abused and to do a lot of bad in the world. And I think definitely there will have to be some type of regulations, but who gets to decide that and how, and those are the big questions that obviously I don't know if any of us get paid to make those answers, but I definitely agree that there will have to be some kind of checks and balances, like anything else that we've come to know in civilization. So
I can.
Well,
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I do completely agree with you, Gabe, on that. I think that it's interesting because you have to put those safeguards in place to an extent, but privacy effectively is destroyed already, and I think that we as a consumer, we kind of like it that way. I mean, I find it very convenient that I Google, solar panels, and then the next day I'm seeing ads all over my Facebook about solar panels, and it's what I want. It's creepy, but it's valuable.
Oh, that's.
Yep.
I have a question I want to ask. Ben, did you want to weigh in?
Well, I was just going to say from a marketing and advertising, because we're talking about tracing and tracking and remarketing and all of this stuff, right? We're already seeing that shift, and I'm surprised more people aren't really talking about it from a like Google Chrome, right? Because when you look at Google Chrome, it's eliminating its third-party cookie, right? And so for the non-ad tech folks out there, like there's first-party cookies, or meaning you come to my site and I cookie you, I pixel you essentially so I can track you and get browsing behavior and things of that nature. Third-party cookie is essentially like Google tracking from across all sites. So it's removing its third-party cookie because of privacy and things of these natures, and it's creating what's called privacy sandbox, which is supposedly helping users control their data and understand their data more. But really, you're going to start seeing a lot of this changing from like different like mapping and fingerprinting of data across platform and sort of omnichannel and all these things around being able to, because there's just so many regulations around it. So if you haven't checked it out, you look up a ton of stuff around third-party cookies and privacy sandbox and what Chrome's doing and eliminating and the move to first-party cookies. It's interesting, but I think that when you look at these next 2 years, you're going to see brands having to work cross-platform with other data providers a lot more closely in order to track omnichannel across devices.
Yeah, it's getting weird out here, that's for sure. And something you guys touched on is the consumer aspect. Do you feel like technology affects our perception of our needs? So we're talking about, like, how David just said he's talking about a wedding, and then wedding stuff pops up on Instagram. Like, does it affect our needs? Just our everyday needs based on the ads that we get now. Does it affect like we feel like we need more things?
If I'm doing my job right.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely. No, I think Elizabeth, on that question, Josh, I think Elizabeth touched on a really good point. When you're talking about needs and wants, as a consumer, that's a fine line, and obviously Benjamin can attest to that. If he's doing his job, and marketing is doing their job, there's no line between needs and wants, really, right? That's the goal. So the fact that convenience just pops up there, we're always looking for convenience. So I think from that standpoint, for your specific question, I think would be obviously a good thing.
Well, it also changes it back to the human, to take it full circle. What happens when you start, and to geek out a minute on this, what happens when you start removing cookie data and implementing privacy, it takes away the focus on automation and these things more back to the creative. So you'll start seeing people maybe pull budgets out of paid remarketing, things of that nature, and put more budgets back into creative, back into organic content creation. And that's all human driven, right? And Gabe knows, even as like creative director, like the thing technology lacks is creativity when it comes to automation. So it can do a really crappy job, but millions of times faster than a human can do it in a million different variations. But it's not going to be more creative when it comes to what we see as creative. It's not going to be that emotional connection of an advertisement that gets you hooked, right? So I think we're going to see a wave of creativity and a wave of organic content optimization and things like that are not scalable or not as scalable as, tech is and automated marketing and things of that nature.
As far as going back to our perception of our needs based on technology, I think that people are willing to accept kind of this status quo until they see others who have it better. And I think that technology is sort of pushed forward by a demand pull and a technology push, and when it happens at the same time, things take off. We saw it with the printing press, we saw it with the iPhone. Sometimes we have this technology push more than we have demand pull. I think that's what we're seeing with VR right now. I think Oculus is really cool. My dad actually worked at Oculus, and so we were able to kind of see a lot of that for the last couple of years, but I think that it's still a little bit confusing for people to understand. But I agree with what Ben said earlier. I think that we'll eventually see that take off. But I think that, you know, there has to be a little bit of a symbiosis between this, you know, technology push and then this demand pull, and then, you know, suddenly we think we need all of the things that we see other people have, like the iPhone and, you know, these other eruptions that technology has had over the last, you know, 100 years plus.
Yeah, that was a great answer. We're gonna need some of those insights on Oculus. I know you have the secrets. But yeah, so we're gonna shift into Q&A for these last 10 minutes. The first question that I had was, according to you, does technology, and this can be towards anyone, according to you, does technology reduce, deaden, or enhance human creativity? So I know we spoke about creativity. I think that's a great question. So according to you, does technology reduce, deaden, or enhance human creativity?
I think it comes down to what industry you're talking about specifically, because anybody can say what it is, right? A purist that's trying to do something.
I think David, you're muted right now. Or let's.
No, we can. I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say it just depends on which industry you're at, right? I think every industry is different, and the way that you view it and the viewpoint is different on an individual basis. But if you want to do something that's at a mass appealing and the ability to be creative, you can use technology, you can use programming. You do have the ability to go ahead and launch it and hit to the masses, you know, very, very quickly, instantaneously. And that's unbelievably beautiful, because you can work with other people and get information from all around the world and enhance that creativity to do. At the same sense, by doing that and the ability to have the understanding of that, you just have to really understand what you're trying to do and what limitations are there. If a pure edit, they'll say it's you know, you're not doing it right, you're stopping creativity, you're blocking it. But it really kind of depends on your own viewpoint and where you're at. And I think, you know, based on my viewpoint, I think it can enhance creativity, because you can do things at a shorter amount of time. Like I can superimpose photos when I've never taken a graphic design course in my life and make amazing marketing material very, very quickly just by getting on these different apps. So again, it just depends on your individual viewpoint, but I personally think it helps creativity.
Okay,
because it speeds up like data and knowledge transfer, right? So when it comes to creativity, like great art is borrowed and then enhanced, right? Whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's ideas, whether it's tech. And the faster that we can be exposed to new ideas, borrow them and then enhance them and share them with the world, it should enhance creativity. Now, it's the powers in the use, as David was saying. Like if I use it to just veg out and do nothing but look at crap all day long, right? Because that's the danger of some socials. Your feed shows you yourself. It's showing you a feedback loop of what you choose and opt into. So if I stay plugged into that and like look at crap all day long, then yeah, I'm probably killing brain cells versus enhancing my creativity. But innately, it has the opportunity to make me even more creative.
That's still on?
That's right. It's a tech.
Oh, that one's off.
While they're figuring that out, I will say, Ben, you said something earlier that was, I thought really cool that, and I can't remember Ben or David, but essentially human creativity is like that last little component that we have left, that we have control over. AI is kind of taking over everything else. And so hopefully it enhances it, because that's sort of where we can play ball for the foreseeable future, as everything else will just kind of be automated and sort of taken over with AI. And I'm not mad about it by any means. I think it's cool, but hopefully, I'll say hopefully technology enhances our creativity, because that's all we have left.
Would you like to answer a couple questions while we're waiting for Josh to get back up?
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
So we do have a question It's a couple of different parts, but the first part is, do you see a future where people or businesses who invest into 5G technology at their locations would be compensated for the data being collected at their endpoints? So let's say you have a large retail presence and you have clients who are accessing that network in order to take advantage of those speeds and features. Would they share some of those profits from all the data being collected?
It comes down to the negotiation skills of the people and their ability to do so, right? I mean, that's really what it's going to come down to. You know, you look at some things like when you look at wind farms, and I have a friend of mine who has these giant wind farm films in the back of his farm, and they're making a great amount of money. And then his neighbor probably didn't make as much money. It's going to have to come down to an individual, and unfortunately, that's what it is. But yeah, there probably is an opportunity to do that and work with that. But it's going to have to come down to individual negotiations of that person or that company to do so.
Nice. Another question is, in terms of being a novice, going back to something you talked about earlier, how would you direct people to involve themselves into artificial intelligence? What are some core principles or resources you recommend learning to begin that journey?
Things like this, I think, like I still read a ton, right? And I don't remember the last time I read a fiction book. I read a lot of nonfiction, but I think like this is where you utilize the tech for good. Like if you find yourself plugged into crap all day long, like unplug from that and start doing something that is enabling in terms of intellectual or creative, like plug into a fiction book, whatever it may be. Like, and I think that one of the things that has really shifted that I'm really happy about in the tech community, in the entrepreneurship community, is like the shareability and the networking aspect of it. It used to be very like early days. It was secretive, it was combative, it was competitive in that way. Like everything was about NDAs and all that stuff. I mean, like now it's really about like how can we use shared productivity? How can we share ideas? How can we grow with each other? And the definition of IP has changed so much, changed so greatly over time too, and the IP about execution versus just an idea. So I think ideas are shared a lot more rapidly and a lot more vividly and vastly today. And so I think the information and the knowledge is out there. And like if anything else, like YouTube is your friend.
Absolutely, YouTube, Google. I think the truth about, or not the truth, but the interesting thing about AI is, what is it? Understanding it, and who really understands it. The average consumer or person probably doesn't really get it, but it's a lot of things, right? It affects our lives in so many ways, so many unseen ways that we don't even realize. And ultimately, it's my understanding or my perspective that the purpose is to basically help us to digitize or automate, whatever you want to call it, make us safer, more efficient, more productive, whether it's in our personal lives, business lives, or even on a social and society type level. So, before you, I guess, kind of want to know, how you can get involved or whatever, you really got to understand what it is, how it affects you, and obviously how it would affect others. So those are good points by Benjamin too.
One thing I will add to that as well is to not ever bet against the rising tide. And what I mean by that is we can all, go to the ocean and we see the waves, but as leaders, especially, if you're interested in the technology space, it's really important to look at the tide, because once a wave hits, it's kind of too late. You need to, it's very difficult to time the market. It's very difficult to make predictions if you're not looking at the tide. If you're only looking at the waves and the things that are happening right now, it's kind of missed the mark. So look at the mega trends that are happening. Don't bet against that. Like Tesla, I mean, like put all, I can't tell you what to do, of course, but like look at the companies that are doing well and the technologies that are doing well, and those mega trends, the mass customization, the asynchrony, the going into people's homes. That's kind of what our company is doing. So look at those types of things, and that's where I would suggest that you want to put a lot of your stock, because that ultimately is the only predictor of the future that we can bet on. Once the wave is hit, it's over with. So look at the tides.
What advice would you give to people who may be feeling maybe a little scared or wary of the rise in artificial intelligence?
I mean, knowledge is key, right? The ability to understand both sides is imperative. And without understanding both sides, you can't really come to conclusion. There's so many different ways of people thinking and different opinions out there. There are very few people who are actually looking at, as we learned back in, probably junior high, the credibility of the source and the ability of the source to actually talk about it, right? It pops on Facebook, so it has to be true. Whereas opposed to now we see we're on Facebook, we're checking, the information of this, where is it coming from, what are they swing, whatever. You have to understand the knowledge. You have to be part of it. And I think, you're scared because you don't know. It's not because you don't have the ability to learn. So if you have the ability to do that, then you'll have a better understanding. And from there, to previous point about the tide, then you'll know how to go ahead and face it and make it work.
Great point.
All right, we have a couple more questions. I guess while Josh is still figuring out his audio issues. We have one that says, where have you seen dynamic content being served from a marketing standpoint? Are there any other platforms jumping on this opportunity like Facebook, Instagram, Google, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. Facebook's been there. Facebook and Instagram and their creator studios and things like that is really doing, I think they're calling it beta typing at this point. But if you have the Facebook pixel and the Facebook catalog seen in, you're able to see dynamic product ads with dynamic creative into there, just baked into the native Facebook platform in Ad Manager. So it's already been around. It's already been there. There's a ton of other players, a few major players that are in that space. I don't necessarily shout out now, but if you do a quick search on DCO or dynamic content optimization, you'll see those platforms out there. But most brands that are advertising on Facebook, if they're big enough that they have some sort of pixel, or if they have the shopping cart involved and their product tagging involved, likely they are serving up dynamic content to you. You are seeing products based on the products that you've browsed. So it's actually a lot more simplified. Like most people that can, just start up a Facebook account and put their product catalog involved. Once they have that, you can run a dynamic content ad in there, relatively self-serve. And you could walk through it on this call in 10 minutes to get somebody up and going.
I just want to add to this. I think another big platform are all the gaming platforms, and I'm big in that space, and I really enjoy it. And I'll tell you why. You look at TikTok and you look at Tencent. TikTok is starting a new gaming platform that's coming out. You look at Huya and Douyu, they're going against each other, bought by Tencent, these giant companies. You look at Twitch and its rise and its valuation, its ability to grow. It's the ability to have people that are immediately trying to access that, and they're sharing their own content to live viewers and audience, right? That's why Instagram is Instagram. Facebook is Facebook. And many, many years ago, my best friend Tom on MySpace also did what he had to do. You were sharing your information and your key that's there, right? So those are different platforms I think are hitting instantaneous audiences. I can tell you just in our group alone, and Gabe will probably agree, our ability to reach 220 universities in 20 countries instantaneously by gaming with major brands and major people is instantaneous and hits the millions. And it's a new platform that's sending Generation Z. So I would probably look at that space as well, and you'll see an uprise in gaming. Everyone does it. Everyone plays Candy Crush some way, somehow. Everyone's played Mario at one point. It really is in my opinion, the future and the opportunity to have marketing and creative content to be out there.
Cool. We have one more question. It says, do you all think virtual reality or augmented reality will be normalized in the professional world, or will it stay in the gaming world for a bit?
I 100% think it will be normalized in the working world eventually. I think that we think of healthcare right now. People who are in medical school, they are looking at a textbook to try to understand what an artery looks like and what plaque looks like in those arteries. I think that we'll see where we will be using VR to actually send people literally into an artery to see that plaque and have those experiences. Same with even things like real estate, going into homes. Right now, you have to schedule an appointment and meet up with a realtor at a home to look at it. It's pretty cumbersome if you kind of take a step back and think about it based on where our technology is today. I definitely think that VR will play a huge role in the professional world, as it kind of increases, and again, as that technology is kind of there, but the demand pull has to kind of keep up with or catch up with that.
And definitely, you mentioned there's HoloLens that was mentioned earlier. So that's augmented reality that Microsoft is working on. That's already made its way into a lot of industries as well. So we do have one more question. Do you see regulation affecting the top players in tech? Top players seem to have a control of main pillars of technology. At what point does it become an issue to consumers or end users when all the information is centralized?
It's already technically an issue. And we like, not to politicize it or anything like that, but it is an issue. I think that people don't understand how much data is out there on them or what that data can be used for or things of that nature, right? And this is coming from someone that only sees a part of it from an advertising and ad tech standpoint. I think transparency, it goes back to that again. I think that it will be more and more regulated. Like, I don't think that in our history things have become less regulated over time, except for like deregulation of like energy or things of that nature, right? But essentially, like when it comes to the primary regulation of security and protocols and things of that nature, I don't see it being less regulated. So I'm not a lobbyist or anything, but I can't imagine a world where it becomes not any more regulated for big tech.
Those are all the questions right now. It looks like Josh might still be having some issues. He's waving. Hi, Josh. Are there any other talking points that y'all wanted to hit on? We can go straight into kind of some closing comments if you would like.
Yeah, David, when it comes to gaming, what do you like? What's next in gaming? Like when we do gaming research studies and stuff, like we're just as much studying your like console and PC gamer as much as we're studying, or we're equally studying mom spending hundreds of dollars a month on Candy Crush, right? What is that next like wave of gamer? Like what's the next generation of gamer look like? And how are more people like getting involved in online and streaming?
I'll tell you, the next generation is more sophisticated than ever. I got my 4-year-old niece who texted me 5 minutes ago and was like, "Are we gonna play Roblox?" And she's 4, right? But my 7-year-old dad has no idea what Roblox is and how to use a computer. It's just gonna be part of integral life. I think what's gonna happen is people are gonna have customization games that are gonna feature them that they do enjoy. Obviously, Oculus is doing really good. We had a chance to visit them in Shanghai and HTC, and it's the ability. I think everyone's going to be part of gaming. Everyone's going to do gaming. There's going to be a huge amount of spending that comes from gaming. You look at someone like Epic and Fortnite, $380 million a month.
Yeah.
And the only thing you can buy are skins. I thought it was the silliest thing, and so I started playing Fortnite, and now I own the skins. The reality is we do what the kids ask us to do. They are the consumers. They are the consumer drivers when it comes to this industry. But those kids are going to become adults similarly. Like the Avengers has now become mainstream, where 30 years ago it was actually considered kind of nerdy and it wasn't mainstream, and now we can take anyone and go watch it and we can talk about it, right? It's a matter of growth and potential, and I will argue that the Gen Z people who are in gaming and companies that are hitting them now will not only have a huge amount of brands and a huge amount of customer loyalty and a customer base, but it will also have an ability to be very global because people are going to continue to stream and show themselves because let's just face it, everybody likes some sort of praise and credibility, and gaming is only going to do that even more and enhance that.
For sure.
I think that that's an interesting point, David, because we talked a lot earlier about AI and how that's going to eventually replace a lot of jobs, and it's going to be, you know, we're going to see a lot of people probably not be able to do the things that we're all doing today because a robot can do it better than we can. And so what will we do with our time? Like, how will we validate our work? I bet you that, you know, gaming will play a huge role in that. That's how we'll be validated. That's how we will like find our, you know, our work or our value is in, you know, maybe that gaming world, since jobs will likely be replaced with bots.
No, of course, and to your point, I just want to add on to that. Even when that's happening, that only opens up an industry of new marketing, new ads, new legal, new retail, new research, I mean, everything that you need to do that involves the typical industry. When a new industry comes up, people tend to forget you need experts in this industry to do so. So as that continues to grow and goes from there, you'll have these experts in those spaces that can help you and make that work. And like you said, like you look at, you know, we had a stream yesterday. We had a pretty famous DJ called Funt Case who was playing on our stream, and it was because he can't play an EDM right now and he can't travel. So what he's doing, he's gaming. He's still pushing his brand. He's still doing what he has to do. He's still playing his music. He's still going from there. That is what I'm going to bet a lot of people are going to do, and it's going to really grow certain brands who are already involved in it now and continue to make an impact.
Yeah.
Absolutely, those are great points, Dave. That's, you know, we both know, and one of the things that we've both that we've worked on too is in the current environment. If you look what's going on, obviously around the world, you know, how do people clue into entertainment and sports and all the things that David mentioned, the possibilities and the synergies across all industries. You know, we've done such things in the last several months as simulating sports. You know, when the NBA season got cut short, and working like that. And, you know, a lot of people will say gaming, you know, it's for kids, and maybe some of the older crowd won't understand, but there's a little cartoon, and I think some of you may have seen it or not, but it basically is, you know, it's a father telling a son, like, why are you sitting here watching people play games when you could be playing it yourself? The kid turns around and says to the father, well, why are you sitting here watching adults play football? You know, it's the same thing. It's entertainment value. Gets you engaged. It's got a social aspect to it. You know, as David says, we play games several times a week at night, and you know, it's just an all-around encompassing synergistic type of atmosphere that's going to bring all kinds of things together. It's already brought all kinds of industries together. So,
but we do our homework
flow
first.
Yeah, that's right. Well, if you follow the deal flow, like you guys know better, like what is the World Gaming Championship prize pot right now? Like what's the average team win in money?
Depending on the regulation of the company, it could be anywhere from 10 grand to 25 grand to Fortnite at $3 million, right? If they're hosting it.
Yeah, $3 million, right? When an average, like a PGA winning a placing in a tournament in PGA, you don't make that much money. So it's like the deal flow when it comes to gaming, the dollars there when you're talking about Twitch, when you're talking about Fortnite, it's just incredible. So follow the dollars and you'll see where the future is, right?
And I definitely think that kind of goes back to the whole Tide conversation. You know, we talked about some of the mega trends, one of those being mass customization, another one that asynchronous like experience, and then also in home. I feel like gaming touches so perfectly on all three of those things. David, you mentioned earlier the skins that these companies are profiting off of in selling, that customization of that experience, the asynchrony, just being able to do it, you know, wherever, whenever. You don't have to go to a arcade anymore to play these games. You're playing them in the home. And so I think that to your point, Ben, it's follow the dollars. This is the mega trend.
Love it. Totally agree.
All right, we have one more question, and then I think we're going to go into closing comments and wrap up this event. So the question is, will virtual worlds somewhat resemble what we see in the real world? Do you think a future where a virtual location like a Vegas in VR would become the new real estate space where companies invest into advertising instead of a physical brick and mortar location?
I mean, I can answer that real quick. I mean, the answer is yeah, it's already happening now. If you go to Vegas, whenever we were able to go to Vegas, you go to Luxor, you'll see that they have these huge banners of gaming. MGM already has these spaces going from there. So the answer is yes. I mean, you know, there's several projects that we're involved in where people are putting up gaming lounges to enhance the ability. You think about 25 years ago when people wanted to put tennis courts and basketball courts in places, you thought that was insane. Why do you want to do it? Because that's what the consumer wants, right? You want to enhance, add value. So it's absolutely going to happen. It's actually happening right now. People are already starting to advertise and do that shift. You see it with ESPN and the content there on the show. People are juggling things, but the reality is because there's nothing to be aired. So the gaming side of it and the ability to do so will definitely enhance and will continue on properties and will continue to be a major part of the world and in life. And we'll see what happens. It's going to be pretty crazy.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and wrap up the event. So before we go, are there any closing comments that you would like to make to our audience if you had to impart them with? Oh, I think Josh is back now.
I think I'm back.
You're back. All right.
So
Would you
sorry
like
about
to
the technical difficulties.
Would you like to wrap up the event?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
hey, those last questions, I could hear everything. I just couldn't speak. So you guys did an awesome job. Shout out to David, Ben, Elizabeth, and Gabe. You guys were amazing. If you guys want to connect with them on social media. You can get the easiest way to get to them is probably through our page, which is ETA Bolt. These gentlemen and females are extraordinary people. And then again, what we do here at Bolt as we bridge the gap between culture and corporate through events like this. This is a community event. However, we do workshops, consulting, and activations, brand activations for companies as well. And you know what we want to do is we want to change the world by starting with unlocking the potential in individuals. And the best way we found this approach is through their employers at work. In a working environment. What we can do is improve the engagement with your employees, which saves money on your bottom line. By investing in the personal goals and interests of your employees, it sends the message that work can be a place of fulfillment and enjoyment, not stress and anxiety. So this is something that we stand behind, and we appreciate the support from our panelists, and we appreciate everyone in the audience who came. Again, if you are trying to connect with the panelists or us, go to ETA Bolt or on Instagram at ETA Bolt, and LinkedIn is the same, ETA Bolt. Thank you again, Christina and Toby, for making this possible there at Microsoft. And shout out again to VentureX and Sync Lab Media, where we're getting these, where I'm in the studio at right now, getting this shot done. Awesome group of people here. And yeah, so until next time, guys, peace.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, have a good one.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank you so much, everyone.